he was there. He was very, very attentive, wanted to make sure that everyone knew what he was doing. Oh, I'm taking care of my girlfriend. Oh, she has a MRI, or I have to take her here. Um, or we've got a doctor's appointment. And uh, even then, he would communicate with the doctor, hey, I've noticed she's doing these things. So he was very, very, very attentive. Um, and I always thought, he came across as being very genuine. And like I said, didn't give me any reason not to think that he was a good person. Um, and I really think all of this or his change really stemmed from the fact that he met up with, his foster mom, because that brought out a lot of ugly things, a lot of ugly things. Even the night terrors started bringing back. We started being very demanding, and yet this was the person that literally all he had to do is shit, shower, and shave. I mean, I did everything for him, not just because it wasn't a requirement. It wasn't, he was demanding any of that, because I myself was recovering. So by doing these things, I had that sense of accomplishment for myself. Hey, okay, I'm getting better today. I can do this, and I can do this, and I keep pushing myself to the next level. I was like, hey, you know what? I'm back in the swimming pool. Oh my God, I'm doing all of these laps. And I was able to, I started coming out of it and becoming more of myself, remembering things clearer. And as that came to be, he reverted back to becoming like a very overly protective person. In other words, he preferred me needing him. And when I got to a point where he knew that I didn't need him, he started to act up and started acting odd, and started having 2,000 friends on Facebook, and most of them are women. And I'm like, why do we have these people on your Facebook?
I'm Donna Anderson, and this is True Lovefraud Stories. The last episode of True Lovefraud Stories was called Let's Move to Texas. In it, a woman named Judith described the emotional and financial abuse that she endured during the year and a half or so that she spent with Carlo Giovanni Malozzi. It was actually the third podcast that Lovefraud did about this man. Last year's episodes were called Let's Buy a Corvette and My Car Broke Down. In both of them, Gino Malozzi conned women out of money. When did this behavior start? How long has Carlo Giovanni Malozzi been taking advantage of women? Perhaps the first woman that he targeted was Jacqueline Williford of Texas, whom he met in late 2006 and married in the fall of 2009. It was his first, and as far as anyone seems to know, his only marriage. Jacqueline says that in the beginning of the relationship, Gino treated her like a princess.
So he was always wanted to open the door, even wouldn't allow for me to open the car door, because, oh, no, I'll get it. So it was always up and over the top with him.
Jacqueline Williford came from an affluent suburb of Houston, Texas. She made friends with a group of boys and girls that she met in the second grade, and they're still friends today. When she was young, Jacqueline studied ballet and piano, played tennis, and was on the swim team. But she also went fishing with the boys in the group. She enjoyed a wonderful childhood. The family moved to San Antonio, Texas, when Jacqueline was a sophomore in high school. There, she made more friends. Still, Jacqueline describes herself as highly selective as a teenager, so she didn't date very much. Jacqueline earned a college degree in business science. Then, at age 23, she married and had 2 children. But 11 years later, she and her husband decided it was best for them to go their separate ways. Jacqueline's soon-to-be ex-husband and Gino Malozzi worked together at a car dealership in San Antonio.
So my divorce papers were going to a fax machine that my ex-husband and Gino shared.
Much later, Jacqueline learned that Gino saw the paperwork, which contained information about her financial assets. Now she suspects that's why Gino became interested in her. In early 2007, when she was 33 years old, Jacqueline's divorce was final. Gino quickly struck up a friendship. In fact, Jacqueline's now ex-husband warned her about him.
Here it is, going through a divorce, and your soon-to-be ex-husband say something about him's not right. Just be careful, Jax.
Jacqueline didn't listen. She and Gino started spending more time together. He wasn't the most handsome man she'd ever dated, but she liked his personality and how hard he tried to please her. They shared an interest in sports and enjoyed going to pro basketball and football games. They were also physically active themselves, competing with each other in swimming and tennis.
He loved the fact that I was I have a very competitive nature, and he was able to keep up. So that was pretty much something that we did throughout our brief marriage, as we say.
Another thing Jacqueline and Gino had in common was a love of cars, especially Corvettes. In fact, Gino was driving a red Corvette when they first started dating.
We drove around and enjoyed it, and then it was gone. So I was like, okay, well, that's kind of odd. And he's like, oh no, I'll find something else. But I didn't have a reason to believe that something wasn't right until later.
Gino originally told Jacqueline that the Corvette required too much maintenance, and he'd sold it. In reality, he wasn't making the payments, and the car was repossessed.
He was very, very careful at hiding things. And again, these are all things that I did not have a reason to doubt or think otherwise until, gosh, we were married and then abruptly divorced, and then all these other things started coming up, and things started to click as to the reason why things, why he said, oh, it was too much for me. Well, it wasn't too much, and you weren't paying your bills, but the fact that we were going to very expensive restaurants and going out, and he was always paying for things. I had no reason to believe otherwise until later.
They enjoyed themselves, but Gino didn't tell Jacqueline much about his past. She knew that his name was Carlo Giovanni Malozzi, and he preferred a shortened version of his middle name, Gino. She didn't know much about his childhood and youth, at least not early on.
That I learned from him in the beginning was that he dealt with abuse. I did know that he was adopted. And he told me that he was from Palermo, Sicily. Again, had no reason to doubt otherwise.
Jacqueline likes to make people happy, and she started having conversations with Gino's adoptive parents. She grew very fond of his adoptive father, Ralph Malozzi. They spoke often.
He would tell me things every so bit, or as much as he could recall. And just said that that Mr. Malozzi's first wife was not a very nice person, and that Gino took the brunt of their relationship failing.
By August 2008, Jacqueline and Gino were seeing each other every day. Gino had an opportunity to work at a car dealership in Kansas, and he wanted Jacqueline to move there with him. Jacqueline's daughter, Jessica, was going to be a high school senior and wanted to stay in Texas. Her son, Patrick, was younger, and she had primary custody. Patrick mostly wanted to play baseball. He was already a standout. Jacqueline decided to go to Kansas with Gino. Her plan was to fly back to be with her daughter for milestone events. Patrick would go to Kansas also, although he would still play Texas baseball. Gino took an interest in Patrick and got him enrolled in a baseball academy. When it was time for Jessica's prom, Gino took her to an exclusive boutique owned by a former Miss Kansas.
Here we are with Jessica getting her prom dress. So he's just made so many little extra attempts to make everybody in the family happy or to like him.
Jacqueline, for her part, was living the life of a housewife. She frequently posted on Facebook to keep in touch with her friends. Jacqueline previously had a career in a big insurance company's litigation department, but before she met Gino, she suffered a tragic surgical mishap, a severe allergic reaction to anesthesia. Jacqueline was on medical disability, and her job now was recovery.
About a year prior to us getting together, I had a surgery that didn't go well. It was a cosmetic surgery, and didn't go well. And they lost me on the table. I had about a year and a half of physical therapy to try and get back everything I lost. So I lost short-term memory, cognitive issues, acute migraines. There were days where I couldn't hold anything down. I was on a great amount of medication. In fact, I think like the day before Gina and I started to come to a decision that, hey, I really like you, you really like me. Yeah, I just want to date you, and that's it. I think he was set up for an interview, and he told me, he goes, well, I had an interview and they wanted me to start tomorrow, but since you have an MRI, I asked them, I'll just start the following day because it was more important for me to take you to this MRI appointment than anything else. So I see it now that he's very much an opportunist, but he was very good at putting up a front of, oh, I did this and I did that, and I took care of this. He always wanted the credit for all of whatever it is that he did.
Gino continued to shower Jacqueline with attention, especially on Sundays, his day off.
On Sundays, our thing was we got up, we got dressed, we went to church. After church, we went shopping, and we literally went shopping all day long. We had a really nice lunch. At the point, as far as shopping, that a bank would call to make sure that our, credit card wasn't stolen. So we're talking elaborate shopping spree.
Jacqueline and Gino stayed in Kansas for a year, then moved to Austin, Texas. After living together for a year and a half, Gino casually asked if Jacqueline wanted to get married. They had a small ceremony at the picturesque Chapel Dulcinea in Austin. A day before the ceremony, Jacqueline met Gino's father, Ralph Malozzi, for the first time. Mr. Malozzi was a successful, wealthy business owner who wasn't around much when Gino was young. Gino and his father had been estranged for years, although Jacqueline didn't know exactly what happened. It didn't matter. Mr. Malozzi was family, so Jacqueline wanted to get to know him. They talked regularly.
Either him picking up the phone and calling me, "Hey, how are you doing? How's it going? What's going on?" Or "How's Gino doing?" Or how's my son doing? How's his baseball? So Mr. Malozzi and Gino's relationship mended because of me, and both him and Mr. Malozzi were very grateful to me for that.
If you're wondering if someone in your life is a narcissist, sociopath, or psychopath, and you need advice on escape and recovery, talk to Donna. Donna Anderson, author of Lovefraud.com and host of True Lovefraud Stories, offers personal consultations. Since she founded Lovefraud in 2005, Donna has collected more than 10,000 cases, so she's probably heard a story like yours before. You're certainly not alone. Donna is also a certified Reiki master. Reiki is a healing approach for stress reduction and relaxation. Donna combines this with her deep emotional release technique to help you let go of the pain of your experience. Book your session today at lovefraud.com/talk to Donna.
About a year or so after they were married, Gino told Jacqueline that he'd gotten in touch with his foster mother, Terry, who lived in Arizona.
"What are you talking about?" And he's just like, "Well, when my first mom was really bad and mean to me, I was on the streets for a little while, and then this lady kind of helped me." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, flat out, "Okay, look, I was in the foster system for a little while, and this was, I was a teenager." And I'm like, "Really? It gotten that bad that you decided to leave the Malozzi residence and go live off the street?" I was like, how bad could it have possibly been? Here's a wealthy family. Why would you do that?" And he just said, "It was just really ugly, and I'm just not ready to talk about that."
Eventually, Gino invited his foster mother to visit them.
Yeah, I had conversations with this woman. She had information that I didn't have, so I was very inquisitive and wanting to know what exactly he went through that he didn't want to share, because he had burn marks on his back, a couple of them on his arm. He would just say, "That's where I got hurt." And I'm like, "Okay, well, it was very obvious of what they were." I asked him, I was like, "Well, who did that to you?" And he's like, I can't talk about it yet."
So, while Gino was at work, Jacqueline talked with his foster mother.
So it was a very abusive relationship that he had with his first adopted mom, and she pimped him out to her socialite friends. So he ended up having sex at a very young age, and didn't truly know right or wrong. But she was always threatening him, that she was going to threaten and tell Mr. Malozzi, that he's doing all these bad things and he's having sex with her friends, and yet in reality, she was the one that was pimping him out. And that was later confirmed by Mr. Malozzi. Mr. Malozzi just pretty much just broke down. I can't believe that I allowed this to happen under my roof, but I was so busy working and I was unaware of the situation. And it wasn't until Gino ran away that all of that had come to his knowledge.
Jacqueline said that shortly after his foster mother's visit, Gino experienced night terrors. He'd wake up screaming. She attributed them to returning memories of the abuse he had endured.
Truly felt sorry for him during that situation, and him explaining things like that, and finally broke down, finally told me everything that was what had happened. Look, I was living off the streets, I was doing drugs, I was doing this, that, and the other, and I'm not very proud of it, but Terry helped me become active in the church, and that just really helps me. So, okay, well, we went from one side to the other, and I said, well, I certainly understand why church is important for you, and by all means, let's go.
Gino suggested moving to Houston, where Jacqueline spent her childhood.
I'm like, oh my God, I would love it. Here I am. I'm so close to my childhood friends. That would be amazing. And things were great for a while. But then he became very jealous over the fact that I had such very strong relationships with the people I grew up with, guys or girls, and some of my best guy friends made it a point to kind of let him in the little club type thing, and they would go out and they'd have a few drinks together, and you'd go and hang out at each other's places and stuff.
Jacqueline frequently traveled between Houston and San Antonio, which was about 3 hours away. When she was gone, Gino was welcome to spend time with her guy friends or the husbands of her girlfriends. But some of them became concerned about her husband's behavior.
One of my guy friends that was in law enforcement asked me if things were okay. He's just like, typically this behavior is a little off.
Jacqueline slowly noticed changes in her husband. For example, now when his cell phone rang, he got up to take the call in another room.
By me starting to pick up as of what was going on, and it became a little bit more difficult in our marriage and our relationship. But between Thursdays and Sunday nights, we were going out to clubs and restaurants with my friends in Houston, because that was being in Houston is what really triggered everything, because you realize just how close I was to my friends, and going out with them. But he never said, don't go out, or no, it's too much, or whatever. But there he was, just as soon as he got out of work, we were with my friends, and having a good time. My thought is that one of them confronted him, and it wasn't until later that it was. He goes, one of them told me, he goes, I don't like the way he looks at such and such. He goes, it's like he's looking at him with the eyes of lust or whatever. And I was just like, I don't see it. I was like, I doubt he would do anything, and he just kind of left it like that. And later found out that he tried to develop a relationship with one of my best girlfriends, and she told me later, she goes, I ended it, and she goes, and I threatened him that if he ever tried to reach in or try and kiss me or hug me inappropriately or anything, that I would be quick to tell you.
Jacqueline and Gino were married for almost 3 years. Then, a couple of days after Gino's birthday in June 2012, Jacqueline had a medical setback.
wasn't feeling well and had to go to the hospital because the migraines were just completely out of control. Throwing up, I wasn't able to literally stand up on my own. I was like falling over. So I went to the hospital. It's recovered. Lived not too far away from my aunt. At the time, my grandmother was staying with her for a little bit, and he called my aunt and says, "Hey, can you come and take care of Jacqueline? I can't do this." And my aunt was like, "Okay, well, whatever." And she didn't realize what he meant was, "I can't do this anymore." So I stayed about a day or two there at my aunt's while I was recovering. Came back home, and we're watching TV, laying in bed, and all of a sudden he turns the TV off, and he's like, "Hey, I really don't want to be married anymore." And I'm like, "Okay, I was just in the hospital for a couple of days, and you're just telling me as a matter of fact you no longer want to be married, but that you don't want to be married. Not that I don't want to be married to you. I just don't want to be married in general. But I want us to be still good friends because we're good friends." And I'm like looking at this fool like, "You just asked me for a divorce, but you want to be friends?" Exactly right. That's the first thing, and I'm like, and I'm like, well, it doesn't seem to be working. So which one of us is going to leave? And he hated the fact that I was sure. Okay, cool. Why in the hell would I stay with somebody who doesn't want to be with me? I'm not going to fight for that, and it would just be just a waste of my time.
When she heard Gino's abrupt announcement, Jacqueline was annoyed, but not devastated. She was having too much fun with her friends. Still, decisions needed to be made. She picked up the phone and called her son, who was living in San Antonio.
Going to file for divorce. And of course, Patrick was like, "First, about damn time, Mom."
Jacqueline asked her son what she should do.
I said, "I can either stay here in Houston, or I can come back and be your mom 24 hours, 7 days a week, and then some." I said, "I will get to know your friends, your coaches, your teachers. I will be in your business. And if you don't think you can handle that, you need to let me know." He's like, "Mom, come home." That's all I needed to hear. That's all I needed to hear.
Jacqueline contacted one of her best friends, who was a prominent attorney, and said she needed a quick divorce. But when she told Gino about her conversation with the attorney, he erupted.
He grabs the phone from me and he throws my phone against the wall. And I'm like looking at him like, what the hell's wrong with you? He's just like, "I'm not paying for an attorney to divorce, to get our divorce done. You can do it. You can do it yourself. And if you have him involved in this, then I'm not going to let you take the car. I'm not going to let you keep this. I'm not going to let you keep that." And I was like, "Okay, fine."
The next day, Gino apologized and gave Jacqueline money to buy a new phone. She told her attorney what had happened, and he advised her to leave immediately. He also promised to help her handle the divorce on her own. Jacqueline and Gino went to the county courthouse to file the divorce paperwork. Then Gino got weird.
He just starts acting so bizarre, so abusive. And preventing me from seeing my friends, and it just goes downhill from there. I later find out that he's doing drugs.
Jacqueline's friends told her that Gino's eyes were red and he was yelling at people at work. They became even more protective of her as Gino's behavior became worse.
he's like, you can't see your aunt, you can't see your grandmother, you can't do this, that, and the other, and you just need to stay here. And it caused a great deal of stress physically and mentally, that a lot of my conditions started coming up very quickly, and they were very intense. And he says like, you're just going to take your medicine. Here's more medicine. And he would bring me medicine. I was so sick that I honestly couldn't function. I didn't know what time of day it was. I didn't know where things were. He had me so over-medicated. And I kept telling him, no, you took my medicine. He goes, no, you didn't. And, I had. So he started, towards the end, drugging me and over-medicating me, and yet still allowing me to go out with my friends every once in a while. Of course, I'm not supposed to drink. Well, he was real quick to, make sure I drank. So I was clearly not in my right mind. A couple of the guys went up to him and said, hey, why are you letting Jacqueline drink? She's on that medication and she can't be doing that. And he's just like, y'all need to just mind your own business.
The marriage was over and Jacqueline was leaving. Soon her family would be bringing a U-Haul truck to move her back to San Antonio.
2 days before that, he locked the room to our bedroom, and I wasn't allowed to come out. He denied me food. I had something to drink, but that was about it. Denied me food. Just told me to take my medicine and shut up. I was so out of it. But I distinctly remember him raping me. I kept telling him no. I said, I don't feel good. I'm dizzy. I'm throwing up, and he didn't care. I told him no. I know somewhere in there I slapped him. I had long nails. I know I scratched him. Someone the following day had mentioned that he had these big long scratches across his face, and his bosses asked him about it. And I think one of my friends told him, he goes, "Yeah, I saw him." He goes, "You can clearly see the scratches, but it looked like, I don't know if you got a hold of your makeup and tried to cover it up or what."
Luckily, while Jacqueline was trapped in her home with Gino, her aunt called to check on her.
She goes, "Honey, are you okay?" And I just told her, "Yeah, I'm really, really sick, and Gino won't take me to the hospital." So my aunt and uncle came and got me, and was just like, no, we'll take care of her. Don't worry about it. We'll take her to the hospital. On the way to the hospital, I told my aunt what had happened. And when we got to the hospital, they did a rape kit, and of course, they evident that he had raped me. And they kept me in the hospital for about another day or so. Did tests. I had a detective come in, take a report, and made it very clear to him that he kept telling me, because if I had said anything about raping, and he admitted to raping me, if I had said anything to the police or my family and stuff that I needed to fear for my life, that I wouldn't have to worry about taking anything, that there'd be nothing to take. And I'm like, wow. Just wow. So there was a point in time where I was fearful of my well-being. And then the following day, he apologizes and says, he doesn't know what he was thinking. I'm so sorry. That's not like me. I'm just frustrated. And can we still be friends? And hey, let me help you pack because I know you don't feel good.
Soon, Jacqueline was back in San Antonio with her parents. Within 3 or 4 days, she was feeling better.
My parents and my son had noticed that my eyes weren't as glassy as they used to be, that my cognitive thinking started to come to me a little bit easier. It's still a problem now, as you can, some of my words are a little bit mixed up, or I'm searching for words, but there was no doubt that I was being over medicated, and which allowed me to be rather submissive, and it's typically not my personality at all.
Now that Jacqueline was out of the toxic environment and on the correct medication dosage, everything became clear to her. She reached out to her friends, who told her Gino was doing drugs with his manager and had behaved inappropriately with other women. A man that she'd known since high school, James Williford, reached out to her and asked if she needed help. Jacqueline confided in him, and he was furious with Gino and wanted to set him straight. Jacqueline said no. She thought it was best to let karma catch up with Gino Malozzi.
James and I started dating, and he really helped me talk about the situation, how it went from okay to not okay, and the things that had happened.
In the meantime, Jacqueline handled her divorce on her own, pro se, with the help of her attorney friend. In her court papers, she said it was an amicable divorce, even though Gino had allegedly assaulted her. She wanted her divorce to be over quickly. With no children and no property, it was straightforward and finished in 60 days. While they were together, Gino had bought a new, loaded Toyota Camry and repeatedly told Jacqueline that it was her anniversary present. She didn't want the car, but she did want to stand up for herself. So she asked for the car in the divorce, and the judge awarded it to her. Jacqueline had to continue making payments and keep it insured, but even though it was in Gino's name, it was her car. Still, Gino used the car as an excuse to harass her. He repeatedly threatened to report the vehicle as stolen.
I can't stand the sight of this vehicle. I'll let my son drive it. He takes it to school. My son had to carry my divorce decree in the glove compartment because heaven forbid Patrick get pulled over. Here's a D1 athlete that has the potential of having a stolen car on his record. The constant threats were over and beyond anybody that could possibly put up with.
Jacqueline called the San Antonio Police Department and the Texas Department of Public Safety to advise them that her ex-husband, Gino Malozzi, might try to report the Camry as stolen. Then he did it.
Sure enough, yeah, he called out just out of spite because he was just being ugly, and his life was going to hell, and he was being evicted out of the house that we had rented, and lost his job, and just his whole world was crumbling around him, and he had the audacity to try and blame me on something that he wanted. And I'm like, you must be confused because this is what you wanted and this is what you got.
Gino got in trouble for filing fraudulent reports, but it didn't stop him from threatening her. Jacqueline changed her phone number 3 or 4 times. Then she started recording the calls. Gino kept at it. Something needed to be done.
I had finally gotten to the point where just rape has a lot of shame attached to it. And I was very ashamed over the fact that I allowed somebody to hold me hostage in my own freaking house, rape me, threaten me, and then you start threatening my son. I had it. So I went in and talked to the DA and told him that I needed a restraining order, gotten divorced, and these things are happening, and took a statement. And by that time, he had left Texas.
In August 2013, Jacqueline submitted an application for a protective order. In her affidavit, she described Gino's threats to report the car stolen, come after her, and kill her. She also described the alleged assault from a year earlier. I was ill and in bed, she wrote. Giovanni became angry because I didn't have his breakfast and lunch ready. He got home from work and was angry because I didn't have dinner ready. He grabbed me by my neck and pushed me through the house to a guest room. He pushed me down by my neck and forced himself on me. I told him to stop and get off of me, but he didn't listen. Jacqueline received her restraining order, but because Gino Malozzi left the state, the alleged rape was never prosecuted. For the first several years of their involvement, Gino seemed to be a regular nice man. His doting behavior, it appears now, was all an act. Does Jacqueline believe that Gino targeted her because she was vulnerable?
Absolutely, I do. Not only that, but from him having access to my assets, and that I come from an affluent family. I feel now, I truly feel now that I was targeted. I was vulnerable. I was recovering from a surgery that went very wrong. I was not able to take care of myself. There was a very large malpractice suit, and he knew of the numbers. But I had made sure that it was ironclad, but nobody was going to be able to get to it except for my children or myself.
In the meantime, Jacqueline and James grew closer. Within about a year of reconnecting, they moved in together. Shortly after that, they married.
One of my wedding gifts for my husband was a guard dog. So, not to mention some other things, but nothing was going. James was going to make sure that nothing happened to me or my family.
Jacqueline's son, Patrick, was accepted to college, where he would be playing baseball. Jacqueline was tired of looking at the Camry and decided it was time to trade it in for a new car for her son. The first thing Jacqueline did was present her court order to the dealership, proving that she had control of the Camry. They sold her a new car.
A couple of months later, I'm served with papers from the dealership, and I think Chubb Insurance, which most dealerships carry, stating that I did not have the right to trade the vehicle, or that I traded it in unlawfully, that it wasn't my vehicle.
Gino had learned that Jacqueline sold the car because when the loan was paid off, he received an $8 check from the bank.
Here we go. Let's do it again. Picked up the phone, called my attorney, let them know, and of course it was dismissed the following morning.
The last of Jacqueline's ties to Gino Malozzi was gone. But then, over the years, she heard from other women whom he pursued. Apparently, Gino would tell them all about her, including her name, and then they found her on Facebook, even though she was difficult to find.
These women would find me and ask me, is he a good person? He talks about being married and he brings you up by name. We just started dating and he seems too good to be true. And I was like, well, here's the funny thing. Think about what you're doing. You're calling the ex-wife of a potential suitor to see if this person's good or not. There's your sign, sweetie. There's your first sign. Run and run far away.
Jacqueline heard from at least 6 different women. One man also contacted her and said his sister became involved with Gino.
He's stolen a whole bunch of money. He was into the thousands, not dollars, and they had a relationship, and he kept pushing her for money and wanted a vehicle and all of these things, and she gave in and let him in, sign onto her accounts, and just as soon as that happened, he drained her account, took off.
The brother said Gino was in Arizona and had a lot of guns. This shocked Jacqueline. Gino didn't have any guns while they were together.
One of my friends looked at his Facebook, and here he is holding all these guns, and I was like, oh my God, here's this person that's threatening me, and he has guns. How the hell did this happen?
Jacqueline no longer wanted to deal with women contacting her about Gino Malozzi. She shut down all of her social media accounts. Then earlier this year, Jacqueline heard the original True Lovefraud Stories podcasts, where I interviewed other women about Carlo Giovanni Malozzi. She reached out to me, and we discussed the possibility of her telling her story.
The thing that prompted me to contact you back was that I received a phone call from a civil debt collector, and I believe I'm going to say Arizona, could be Nevada. I don't remember offhand. And somebody asked me, because, well, may I speak to Gino Malozzi? And I'm like, excuse me? Here it is. 12 years later, 12 years of being divorced with this man, and a debt collector's calling me. And I'm like, well, who's this and what's in reference to? And they're like, oh, well, he left you as a reference name. I'm like, excuse me? And it just so happened to be regarding, the brother-in-law that I guess they took him to court or something like that. Well, he's supposed to be making some type of restitution or payments for restitution, and he didn't. And now this debt collector called me, a couple of days ago, and I'm like, you know what? That's it. I've had it. This man has no business even saying my name, and yet has me listed as a reference. I will give him a reference. So now you and I have connected, and I finally come to terms with this situation that I'm ready to be a spokesperson and advise ladies that basically, ladies, say your biggest mistake so others don't make the same. And if I can prevent what it not only happened to me, but all the other women that he's either taken advantage of or abused or stolen from, it's time for him to be punished for what he has done.
I'm Donna Anderson, and this is True Lovefraud Stories. Since Jacqueline was with him, Carlo Giovanni Gino Malozzi has turned into a serial con man. He's been involved with multiple women, specifically to take money from them. Why does he do it? Perhaps he has one of the personality disorders of the dark triad, which are narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism. In the next episode of True Lovefraud Stories, I speak with Dr. Dan Jones, a psychology researcher, professor, and expert on the dark triad. He'll explain the disorders and how to deal with people who have them. Be sure to listen. You mentioned that there were a few things you wanted to say, so what might that be?
If there is a way to have him tagged as being unstable, my biggest concern is the amount of guns that he says that he has. He never had them when we were together. There were no guns in the household, although I'm very much a supporter of the Second Amendment. My father was a marksman, so I don't have issues with guns or them being in the house and so forth when a person is indeed stable. And it's come to the conclusion that he is far from that. That he has just spiraled in a very downward situation, and now the women that have contacted me, they're scared. They are scared. Yeah, I myself, I mean, I'm protected at all times, so I'm not scared. I know what to do in the event I am confronted. But so many of these women aren't, and I don't want any of them to become, a statistic, and that he lashed out or hurt any of them, or and I think that's really the main thing that I was concerned about. Because a few of them had been scared. The situation that he put me through has taken a lot of time to heal.
True Lovefraud Stories is produced by Lovefraud.com. For more information about this story, other great stories, or if you'd like to share your story, visit podcasts.lovefraud.com. Engineering is by Terry Kelly. To learn how to recognize and recover from everyday sociopaths, visit Lovefraud.com. You'll find articles, books, and webinars. You can also book an appointment with me, Donna Anderson, for advice about your personal experience with someone who may be a sociopath. I'm also a certified Reiki master, so I can help you to let go of the pain of your experience. Book your session today at lovefraud.com/talk to Donna.